Let's read together our text for this morning. Psalm 84, verses 5 through 7. Psalm 84, verses 5 through 7. Blessed is the man whose strength is in thee, in whose heart are the ways of them, who passing through the valley of Baca maketh it a well. The rain also filleth the pools. They go from strength to strength. Every one of them in Zion appeareth before God. Psalm 84 is a psalm of Zion. The last part of our text states, every one of them in Zion appeareth before God. As I mentioned recently in a sermon, there were two main buildings in Zion, or Jerusalem. One of which was the royal palace. But it's not the focus here. It's not even mentioned in Psalm 84. Psalm 84 focuses instead on God's house, His tabernacle or temple. Verse 10. A day in thy courts is better than 1,000. I had rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. Verse 4 says, Blessed are they that dwell in thy house. And in verse 1, we're told that God's house is His tabernacle or temple. How amiable are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts. And the plural is used here either because it's a plural of excellency, or it's because the tabernacle had two rooms, the holy place and the Holy of Holies, in which was placed the Ark of the Covenant. So we have Zion with tabernacle, with its two rooms. This psalm also mentions the courts which surround the tabernacle. A day in thy courts, verse 10, is better than 1,000. Verse 2, my soul longeth, yea, even fainteth for the courts of the Lord. Tabernacle, with the two rooms and the courts surrounding it. Verse 3 even mentions God's altars. The sparrow has found a house, the swallow made her nest, even thine altars, O Lord of hosts. And the altars at the tabernacle were two. There was the burnt offering altar outside the tabernacle, and then there was the altar made of gold in which incense was offered. And the burnt offering altar speaks of Christ's sacrifice on the cross for us, dying for all of our sins. And then the altar of incense refers to His intercession, so that He prays for us and our works and our prayers, so that we have access in the Holy of Holies. Now there were two main sorts of people, believing people, in ancient Israel. First of all, there were the priests and Levites. And verse 4 speaks of them. Blessed are they that dwell in thy house. They will be still praising thee, Selah. Because the priests and the Levites worked all day at the tabernacle and later temple, and they lived nearby. And so it says here that they dwell in God's house. And dwelling in God's house continually, they praised the Lord. And beyond these privileged few, of only one of the tribes in Israel, there was everybody else. They did not dwell at the tabernacle or temple, like the priests or Levites, they had to make a journey or go on pilgrimage to Zion and to the tabernacle and later temple. They did this especially, and were required to do so, the meals, for the three great feasts or festivals: Passover along with unleavened bread, Pentecost, and Tabernacles. And verses 5 through 7 refers to everybody else, the non-priests, the non-Levites, who have to go up on occasion to the tabernacle in Jerusalem. We should note that both groups are blessed or happy, because blessed and happy mean the same thing. Both groups. Verse 4, about the priests and the Levites, we read, "Blessed are they that dwell in thy house, they will be still praising thee." And then verses 5 through 7 talk about the other Israelites from Gad, and Issachar, and Benjamin, and all the rest. "Blessed is the man whose strength is in thee, who goes up to the temple." Both groups are blessed and happy in the Lord and at his house, because he is gracious and he daily loads all his people with benefits, as Psalm 103 says. Now, this morning we're going to consider the latter group, the blessed pilgrims heading up to the tabernacle or temple at Jerusalem, mentioned in verses 5 through 7. We're going to meditate upon this, especially with a view to the Lord's table. And as we remember God's benefits for us in his house through Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection, we lift up our hearts on high, where he sits at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. Consider then blessed pilgrims heading to Zion. Blessed pilgrims heading to Zion. First, where their strength lies. Second, how their journey goes. And third, whom they appear before. Blessed pilgrims heading to Zion, where their strength lies. That's especially verse 5. How their journey goes, verse 6, and the first part of verse 7. And whom they appear before, in the second half of verse 7. Strikingly, the first thing we are told about the blessed pilgrim is where his strength lies. This is a very important thing about a person. Think, for instance, of Samson. That's what Delilah wanted to know. Where does your strength lie? And where a person's strength lies here deals with where that person thinks it lies, where he places it. We're not dealing here with a lawful, proper, sensible, humble recognition of God-given gifts. Instead, we're dealing with a man's own judgment of the source of his strength, the deepest origin for it. Because fallen man, amongst the many other lies that he embraces, he naturally and sinfully flatters himself about his strength. The people in this world who are outside of Jesus Christ, every last one of them has a wrong idea about his strength. We know that because otherwise they would embrace Jesus Christ. My strength lies in my wealth and my family connections, says one. And many people really do think that is what makes them strong, significant, important in this world.